Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Evansville. We're happy to see you all this beautiful Sunday morning. I'd like to begin our service by singing hymn number 16 in the gray hymnal, and stand if you're willing and able, and we'll sing this how many times through?
How many times you want us to do? 3 times?
Infinity.
It's hymn 16, so we're going to sing this 16 times. Not really. No, we're not. Until I stop. How's that sound? Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, to be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn, to be our delight, to by turning we come out right. Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, to be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn, will be our delight, by turning, we come out right. One more time. Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, to be in the valley of love and delight. Oh, when true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn, will be our delight, to by turning, we come round right.
Yeah, do it. Again, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Evansville. My name is Tom Moore. I'm the worship leader this morning. We do welcome you, whoever you are, however you got here. It is a blessing that you are all here together, regardless of your race, gender, sexual orientation, economic class, whatever spiritual path or paths you're on. We welcome all that is the essence of you. Are there any church announcements that need to be made this morning?
Good morning. First of all, I want to say these beautiful roses were left here last night. If any of you knew Diane Kramer, they held a memorial service for her last night here in the church. And so Cecile Martin, who arranged it, who is a good friend of Diane's, she wanted to leave the roses for us so we could see their beauty and share in them today. This is not strictly church, but in a couple of weeks we're having someone from Creation Care come to speak on Sunday. So next Sunday, October 2nd, it's called EVs for EVV. There's going to be a gathering of electric vehicles, and so I wanted to tell you about that. This is sponsored by the Creation Care. And it's also in a bigger car show. They're going to have muscle cars and classic cars. It's going to be, where Best Buy is on Burkhardt. It's going to be in that parking lot by Best Buy and Burkhardt. So it's from 4 to 7 p.m., and they're going to have, I think, 20 electric vehicles. They also have electric motorcycles, electric bikes, and some of the electric car owners will take people for test drives if you want to go for a ride. And those are free. Donations are appreciated, but that's free. Let's see. So I think that's about it, but it's like I said, next Sunday from 4 to 7, Ken and I are going to be volunteering to help out. And I think they have enough volunteers, but I think it's going to be a great event if you want to come see it.
This is an announcement on behalf of CLC that I didn't tell Barbara I was going to make, but people are starting to ask about Thanksgiving. And we have, during the years, at times had a Thanksgiving dinner here, a potluck, for people who want to participate if you don't have family that you're gathering with or whatever. So if we end up with at least 10 people that want to Thanksgiving here, we will do that. I don't have a sign-up sheet available yet, but if anybody is saying, yeah, I want to do that, I'll just take your names today and we'll do an official sign-up sheet and have it available after that. But we kind of need to know about how many people are interested so we know whether or not to plan the event. Thank you.
Thank you.
This isn't exactly church news, but next Sunday after the service is the closer? Okay. Next Sunday after the service, the international dinner at the Islamic Center is going to be going on, so you might want to kind of look forward to that. I think it's the first time since COVID. Sometimes the lines are really long, but maybe since it's the first time back after COVID, it'll be best delicious food, and all the proceeds go to food banks around the area.
Oh, it's on Grimm
On
Road.
Lloyd.
Yeah, right off.
On Lloyd, yeah. Mhm.
As a participant of that, let me say the line is worth the wait. The food is outstanding, and the people are really nice. So support our Muslim friends.
Our upcoming Sunday services titles and themes are next Sunday, October 2nd, Animal Blessings. So bring your pets that are reasonably sociable, or pictures or objects, remembrances of your pets. So that's October 2nd. October 9th is Creation Care, as has already been mentioned. October 16th, the theme is hippies. And October 23rd, the topic is the welcoming history of the UUA congregations. And October 30th is Halloween.
Jennifer, should we dress appropriately for the hippie Sunday?
Always.
Sure.
I wanted to remind everybody that the Fall Festival is in 8 days, and the sign-up sheets that Chris put together for us are out in the lobby, so your help will be appreciated. Sign up many times if you choose.
Yeah, come early, come often. Any other announcements? Well, we mentioned earlier that we're happy for all of you to be here, and we don't want this to be a painful exercise, but if you are a visitor this morning and you're willing, if you'd stand and tell us who you are so we can greet you properly. Any visitors this morning? If not, that's okay. Again,
Hello, my name's Solomon, and I'm back with my boys doing all this, and I also brought my wife today. Her name's Amanda.
welcome. Okay. You look like you had something to say. We also take a few minutes to actually see each other, touch each other, and break our isolation, which is killing us as a culture. So take a few minutes to stand and greet one another, and then we'll continue with the service. And now with Unitarian Universalist Churches Worldwide, we will light our chalice. If I could have a volunteer, please, to come. A poem by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. The offering is a sacrament of the free church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join with us. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. When I was in college at the university worship, they used to say, if you have money, give it. If you need money, take it. So I think if we're truly a community, let's do that, and I'm deadly serious about it. Also, if you're a visitor today, please let the plate pass you by. Your presence is gift enough. If I could have 2 volunteers to pass the plates, please. Thank you for those gifts. We trust they will be put to wise and judicious use And thank you for all the ways you support the life and work of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Evansville. And now Steve will introduce the story for all ages.
I don't know if some of you noticed, my wife's online today. She fell and broke her foot this week, and that's why she's not here. She has a boot that she's not quite used to yet, so she didn't feel like getting out, but I miss her. And she was going to read this, but Ben stepped in. It's a story about anger management, because that's part of what I'm going to talk about today. So.
Please allow me to preface this by saying that in no way am I worthy of filling Lorna's shoes, but I'll try. Clovis keeps his cool. By Caitlin Aronson. Clovis ran his granny's old china shop in the town square. On inventory day, he unpacked and stacked porcelain so fine you could almost see through it. Never did he drop one dish. Grace, Grace, nothing broken to replace, he whispered, as Granny used to say. There was just one problem. Clovis had a temper as big as he was. As a linebacker for the Cloverdale Chargers, he'd lost his temper on and off the field. But since taking over Granny's shop, he felt calmer, until the day a few old rival players dropped by. Not them, Clovis thought. He clenched his teeth. Well, looky here, said one, the bull in the china shop. Is that colossal Clovis, said another. I hardly recognize him in the apron. Yeah, he quit football to play tea party, said the third. What a wimp. Clovis clenched his teeth. The anger rose, that old urge to charge, but he resisted. He breathed in on a count of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He breathed out. I will not lose my cool, Clovis said. Tired of waiting for a response, the hecklers moved on. On dusting day, Clovis put on a soothing music. He spent a while in a lotus position, then set to work. Grace, Grace, nothing broken to replace, he sang. And soon the glassware gleamed, until voices rose over the violins. Not again, Clovis thought. You missed a spot, said one. Better watch that big behind, said another. Oh, yeah, one false move and crash, said the third. Clovis clenched his teeth. There it was again, the urge to charge. But he resisted. Quickly he grabbed a fluffy cushion to squeeze. Oops, that was the cat. He stroked her instead. I will not lose my cool, Clovis said. Bored, the hecklers finally gave up and headed home. On display day, Clovis lit a lavender-scented candle. He sipped some chamomile tea, then set out to work, or set to work. Grace, Grace, nothing broken to replace, he chanted, installing the window decor, until noses muzzled the glass. There they are, they're pushing their faces into the glass. This time they banged into his shop. Fancy a spot of tea, fellows, said one. Oh, is it that precious? A portrait of his granny, said another. Wow, said the third. I didn't know she had a beard. Clovis was a kettle about to boil over. How dare they insult Granny? They picked up Granny's once favorite teacup and taunted him. Hey, Clovis, could you still catch a pass? No, cried Clovis. Don't! He turned too late. Smash! Granny's cup lay in bits at his hooves. I'd say he's pretty angry. Clovis was all out of grace. He chose the chase and charged. I think he charged 2 pieces of paper together here. Crash, crash, kabash! Clovis tore through town, hot on the heckler's hooves. The stampede didn't stop until he chased them to the end of a dark alley. The hecklers huddled together, trembling. This was Clovis. This was the Clovis they remembered, the one capable of crushing anything, anyone. Clovis snorted and pawed at the ground. He lowered his horns to strike, and one tiny tea bag dropped into view. Clovis stopped. Granny, he thought. Oh, Granny, Grace, everything's broken. Your teacup, your shop. From somewhere deep in Clovis's memory, Granny's voice answered, "My dear, Grace, Grace, what is broken can be replaced." Clovis let her gentle words wash over him. He looked straight at his enemies and sighed, "Look, I may be a bull, but I'm no bully. Could I interest you guys in a cup of tea?" The hecklers looked at each other in disbelief, but Clovis seemed serious. So serious that when he turned to lead the way, they followed. Back in the shop, the window and its wares lay smashed to smithereens. Clovis set a table anyway. Carefully, he poured 4 cups of tea, and together they sat in silence, sipping. For a moment, it was as if they were on the same team. It made the hecklers think. The next day they came back. Oh no, Clovis thought. But this time was different. They came back the next day and the next. Little by little, they helped Clovis pick up the pieces, putting right what had gone wrong, and always Clovis served tea. By the time the shop reopened, a few things had changed. Clovis had old hobbies. There he is playing football. And new friends. And you can see that the guy's there. There you go. And plenty of grace to go around.
Each week in our congregation, we take a few moments to share the stories of our lives because everyone's life and story is important. All that's been shared this morning, but we also know that not every concern can be shared publicly. It rests too close to the heart, and I will put one pebble in the bowl for those concerns. And now we have opening words.
The opening words will be brief. First, thanks, Ben, for stepping in for Lorna and doing a wonderful job with our anger management theme today. And when you think about joys and sorrows, I mean, the duality of that is very similar, not the same, obviously, as what I'm going to talk about today. And that's just the duality of all of us. Everybody knows the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This novella has had a great influence on the names, as the names, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde have often been used as generic phrases that refer to the dual nature of people. Jekyll and Hyde are the same person but act with separate and very distinct personalities, one good and one inherently evil. So they represent the good and bad in all of us. It helps us understand the conflict that lies within every one of us. In a quote from the book, Stevenson said, speaking as Dr. Jekyll, but himself as well, "I felt that I was forced to choose between those two natures of mine, who had memory in common, but did not share the rest of the faculties to the same extent. That is me. I am Jekyll and Hyde, but in one very specific place. I will share that place, its history, and my continuing struggle to find a permanent remedy soon." Thank you.
Now we'll take a few moments of quiet time, during which time you can pray, meditate, or simply enjoy the quiet. And we will break that after a few moments by singing hymn number 123 in the hymnal Spirit of Life.
Thanks, Mark. He always does such a wonderful job when he's playing here. I love that song, and it kind of runs the polar opposite of what I'm going to talk about today. All of us have things we don't like about ourselves. One of the things I don't like about me is my duality of spirit along the lines of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So with that, I'm here to plead guilty to my dark side, my own version of Mr. Hyde, although I can honestly say it's improving, but still very much a work in progress. My Mr. Hyde resides in a very particular place, and it's behind the wheel of my Toyota Camry. I don't get into the car thinking about him or even, consider turning to Mr. Hyde with forethought or agenda. Let another driver do something I don't like, though, turn in front of me without using his turn signal, go whizzing by, texting, or maybe the most seemingly innocuous of all of them, not take their turn at a four-way It happens. It still happens. It doesn't happen as much as it used to, but it still happens. And in that situation, moron is my favorite word, but there are a lot of others, and moron is seldom the first word. There's usually another adjective or two, or never the last. And I can't quote those in this setting. I mean, especially with children here. Among friends, I mean, they've heard them. I don't, always speak in the best, or use the best choices of words. But part of that, and when I was young, I didn't do that in front of my own kids when I was driving, because I had the experience when I was young. I worked in churches all the time, so I had that filter, and it helped me. But anyway, I want to apologize, because if I've ever tossed a Hyde tirade your way while driving, forgive me. It's one thing that I, do occasionally. He's like a turtle, with a mean streak. He prefers the solitude of his shell, but if somebody pokes him, he comes out, with the venom. So I guess it's a poisonous turtle. But unfortunately, this is, a recurring situation that has driven my dear wife Lorna crazy for as long as we've been together, which is now more than 47 years. Early in our relationship, 46 years ago in July, actually, we took our first extended trip together to Florida. We did a variety of different things and had a wonderful time. It was kind of a test marriage, so to speak, and we were coming home feeling good about ourselves and our relationship until we got to downtown Atlanta at 9 or 10 at night, and Hyde came out, and he was in rare form, weaving, cussing drivers, flipping the bird, whatever it was, he's me. I'm always, was always determined to be the first one there, not waste a second on the road. I couldn't get where I was going fast enough. And at some point, Lorna had had enough, and she said whatever she said. And Hyde wasn't having it. He did not react well. We were in my brother's van, and I just said, "Go in the back of the van and lay down. I'll let you know when we're through the city." Well, she did, and then she spent that alone time contemplating leaving me and not getting married. To quote Lorna, "There were several months after that I wasn't sure I should marry you because of that one night," she said. "I didn't know if our personalities, being so totally different, could make it together. To some extent, I've put up with it ever since." Much later, after we had kids and we were on another trip to Florida, and we were south of Atlanta somewhere on I-75, and I was doing my Hyde thing, weaving in and out of traffic, trying to get there, be the first one there. And Lorna had it again, and she said, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you just go with traffic?" And I don't know, I'm not sure if I answered or just gave her my classic eye roll or, whatever. But our daughter spoke for me. She, a teenager at the time, who has grown into a driver far more like me than her mom, much to Lorna's chagrin. But Lacey laughed and put a little bow on, what has become a major part of me and still remains to some degree today. She says, "Mom, you don't get it." And she said with a laugh, she said, "He's out here racing every other driver on the road. He has to get to Florida first. And it has nothing to do with you." And, I go, "Yeah, Lorna, listen to your daughter." And Lacey and I both laughed, and Lorna again did not, and mumbled something unflattering under her breath, and we just went on about our merry way, or not so merry way as it turned out. Through the years, though, Lorna has managed to wear me down a little through a combination of pleading, coaxing, and sometimes outright losing it. Mrs. Hyde, I suppose, she has helped me improve my shoddy behavior behind the wheel. But there was something that I learned through my own experience that helped me slow down Mr. Hyde. It was a time 23 years ago when our son, the result of being a 20-year-old male driving a car, lost his driver's license. And at the time, he was working every day a second shift job at Ameriqual, which, if some of you might know, if not, it's just south of Interstate 64 on Highway 41. So I drove him to work every day. He had to be there at 3:30 p.m., and which was convenient because I had to be at my work downtown at the newspaper, the Courier and Press, at 4. That meant I'd drive, 19.3 miles from our house to his work, about 2/3 of it on Highway 41, and then back down 41 to my job. Lots of traffic, lots of stoplights. As a lot of you probably know, truckers once referred to Evansville as Stoplight City. And for the first few weeks, Mr. Hyde was very much at work, driving, passing, every vehicle I could, on the left or the right, for my eternal quest to get there first. But I gradually began to notice almost all the cars I'd passed, some of them 3, 4, or more times, kept pulling up next to me at the next light, immediately behind me, or, gasp even in front of me after I'd gotten stuck behind a slow-moving car. Even when you go through a light and another car didn't, 2 lights down the road, you'd see them pulling up behind you or next to you. So it was, it became fruitless. And I figured it out. I said, it didn't matter how hard you tried to pass all the cars on the road, you couldn't. There were too many lights, too much traffic, and it just didn't matter. And I, got calmer. Hyde was crushed by, this thing, but I was much better. And I shared my driving science discovery with Lorna, and she shared with me. Anyway, it began to make a difference with my driving in traffic, especially in places, like Lloyd Expressway. I realized my hyper-competitive nature wasn't compatible with traffic and began actually going with the flow most of the time. But one of the great ironies of my, conditioned situation is that although I've had my share of stupid moments through the years, screaming at other drivers, and even when I was much younger, a few physical confrontations, I never committed actual road rage. But I have been the victim of it. It was back when the Lloyd was being built, and every eastbound car had to exit at North Main Street, which also happened to be my exit for work. Apparently, one guy, a rather tall fella, didn't like my driving as I swung in front of him or something to, head into the parking lot at work, and he followed me in and started raving at me and challenged me to a fight right there in the parking lot at work. I said, I said, okay. I said, I can't fight here, so let's go across the street. And I started marching across the street, and then I looked back, and he didn't follow me. He had run and gotten in his car, got out of the club, and smashed out the back window of my van, or our van, or anything, which was a bad mistake for him because there was a security camera at work, and one of my friends, a photographer, was walking in, and photographers always carry their cameras around their neck, and all he did was take a picture of the guy's license plate as he was driving off. And, let's just say things did not go well for him in court. But that was the end of that one. But these days, though, through counseling, regular attendance to, 12-step programs like Al-Anon and adult children of alcoholics, I realized the root cause of some of my anger, growing up in an alcoholic household and other character flaws, where they came from and, how to better deal with them. And I've been able to operate better on most occasions behind the wheel. It also helps to be old, so I know any thought of adding stupid to some of my stupid behavior is no longer a consideration. Now I routinely cross town the Lloyd with, out ever more than taking the required lane changes to get out of somebody's way or let someone merge into traffic, or, and I don't, make any obscene gestures, scream at anybody, and I just go with the flow. And the one thing I still can't tolerate, though, is somebody texting. I'm waving it out in the car. That drives me crazy, but I'll never be able to tolerate that. And I've actually recently taken in few long trips, where there was no cussing, honking, except for safety reason, or making obscene gestures at other drivers. After recently completing the 7-hour trip to Auburn, Alabama to see our daughter Lacey and her family, without so much as a cross word under my breath, Lorna didn't even notice how good I'd been. I'll take that as a good sign. But Hyde can still get excited in one very particular situation, a 4-way stop. Most go without incident or outburst because most drivers are like me. They want to get through ASAP. It's that simple. Just take your turn and I will always be fine. Proceed through in the order we arrive. Just go. Do it. It's simple. I'm always fine with it. But there's a car insurance commercial now that reminds me of that routinely when I see it. I think it's Geico, where there's 2 male drivers that come up, one's at this, here, and the other was out on his left, and they pull up to the 4-way stop, and they just try and wave each other through cheerily. And then there's an older woman that comes up, me, and says, "Come on!" That's me. Come on! Anyway, I hate it when people will go. Here's why. This is a recent, very typical example that came when Lorna and I were on our way to a meeting. A woman in a late model sedan on my left, got to the 4-way stop 2 or 3 seconds before me. I mean, she was clearly there first. And she came to a full stop and looked my way, and so she could watch me stop, which I did, completely. And I look at her, only she didn't go. So I nod at her and give her an open hand and gesture, wave her through. Let her know the road was hers, but she didn't go. So I pointed at her, and she smiled broadly and just started waving me through. I lost it. I said, "Just take your blankety blank, bleep, blah, 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 turn," as I sped through the intersection. So we went on to our meeting, and minutes later, she walked into the room. Nothing was said between us, and to be honest, I don't think she actually noticed, because she was a, hopelessly cheery, nice person, and, me in those situations am not. But I did have one choice word for Hyde and myself. It was moron, Sometimes it just fits. That's my story, so I just don't know if anyone else has anything to share, add to it, or chastise me because I saw you once at a 4-way stop and you had the audacity to try and wave me through. So,
A lot of things flood through my head when I think about Steve's talking about road rage and whatnot. I really don't have an anger problem per se. They say people usually have an anger problem or a worry problem. Mine more towards worry, but I found out I'm a very impatient person, and that's my driving problem. As you know, we lived in China for a while, and they have electric bikes, a lot, as many cars, and they have electric bike lanes, which makes it safer, right? Well, I'm usually impatient, and I have to be punctual, so I'm like whipping through traffic. But my wife, Jamie, she has, I found out it's called amoxophobia, which I thought was, I didn't know what it was. Fear of amoxicillin? What is that? Yeah, my daughter does too. One time, we were on our electric bike, just whipping through traffic, and I was having a gale of time, just woo, a lot of fun, and then she started like yelling in my ear every time I did something dangerous, because this is a real problem that she's. I'm not blaming her. I was crazy on that bike. I admit it, okay? But, she was the point to tears. She was crying. She didn't even raise her voice. She was just like, I can't believe you don't care about me that much. And, it's like, it broke my heart. And I'm trying, okay? I'm trying to do better. I'm working on my impatience, like some people might be working on their anger. My anger problem, I guess, sorry, I try to talk too long, but my anger problem is with myself. I get angry at myself to the point where I worry about how other people feel about me, and I worry too much about that, and so I kick myself too hard when someone's mad at me or I screw up some way. And so I think that's another side of anger management is guilt and anger at yourself. So it's learning how to be patient with yourself. And I found out I'm not perfect. I always thought I was perfect for a long time. I'm not. So anyway, I thought I'd share that.
Thanks, Mark.
I got my driver's license a hell of a long time ago in Fresno, California. And I had been, of course, driving. Parents train their children how to drive because the children are present in the car, so they're seeing what's going on. That's their training. And we no longer have high school training that says, where the physical ed instructor usually takes you out and says, here's how you drive a car. Now, I had it because this was eons ago. And it really made a difference in how I understood the physics of cars, how to turn them, how to stop, start, all of that, all the little details, and how it's important it is, as Steve said, to take your turn at a four-way stop. And I still live up to that and live up to the ideal of, yeah, you get there first, you go first on the right. Or if you're on the, get there at the same time, when the right goes. That's the way it works. But as a child, well, comparatively speaking, definitely then, I'm the not so proud recipient of 37 or 38 moving violations. Almost all for speeding, because I love to go fast. Hence, I ended up racing motorcycles for a year from San Jose to before I moved to Tucson. It was really a lot of fun riding a motorcycle. That thing would go about 150. Fortunately, it was on a racetrack. But I stopped driving that way because it seemed to be less and less good for me, or good for my passengers. It certainly wasn't very good for my cars. So, like Steve, it's been a process, and I'm mostly over it. Now I drive usually below the traffic speed, especially on the low end. I'm only doing 5 over. I'm only doing 55. People are going by me doing 65, 70 fairly consistently, which is irritating. But I see them at the next stoplight, as Steve said, which is always fun. But it's been a process to overcome my Hydeness.
When you were talking there, Steve, many things came to mind. One of them is that I've always tried to qualify my needing to be first, not necessarily needing to be first. People equate it to that, but I get really, I don't know, it's kind of like, I don't know if you call it claustrophobia, when I get boxed in. And if you've ridden motorcycles a lot, you can relate to that, because if you're on a motorcycle and you get to where vehicles are all around you and you have no escape path, boy, it can really, it gets really, you don't have a choice. You got to get away from that. I've driven across this country 1 million times. I'm probably well over 1 million miles in vehicles, but one thing I will point out, or two things. I know I talk a long time too, but two things I'll point out. One is that I discovered I used to commute to the Gulf of Mexico from here. It was about 16, 18 hours. So I'd fly all day long over the Gulf, get in the car, drive all night to get home. And when I get to the population centers, Memphis or wherever, it was just, man, I had to, oh man, it would really come out in me. And I discovered that if I listened to classical music, it changed everything. I could just slow down. I could go with the flow. It was much less tiring to do that. Just put classical music on and enjoy the ride. And then the other thing is that my Hyde came out. I was pulling out of the Schnucks parking lot, had to get home, I don't know for what reason, but I had to get to the house. And a vehicle pulled out of the day school and got into the center lane, and I'm coming up North Green River Road, probably at speed limit, which is, by the way, 45 there. It's not 26. But I'm coming up Green River Road, and the person in the center lane doing 26 miles per hour pulled over in front of me. So they go up and they get in the turn lane, and I get right next to her, and I'm like, "What are you doing? Did you see I was right there?" And I looked at it was my sister-in-law.
Been there. So, Ben, you're saying Metallica's not a good music choice when I'm driving through traffic? Yeah. Yeah.
Three things. Being a recipient of mental health treatment for most of my life, you learn things like what your unconscious dialogue is and how to make it conscious so that you can challenge those things that say, oh, you're crap, oh, you're stupid, oh, you're a moron, all the things that you say to yourself, and get curious about them and challenge them, and then maybe divert them and give you more positive things to say to yourself. Can lessen all the stuff. And then the second thing is there's an indigenous story about a grandfather that's teaching his grandson about the two wolves. And one is the evil, malevolent wolf, and the other is the more positive wolf. And the kid says, well, which one wins? And he said, the one you feed. And I think about that all the time. It's like, what do I want out of my life? Okay, I have to feed the one that I want. You know, if I feed the one that I don't want, that's the result I'm going to get. So I have to feed the one that I want. And I used to swear. I don't swear in general, but when I was driving, I used to swear quite passionately. And the way that I learned to not do that is like, okay, how can I divert that? How can I switch that? So whenever I felt the need to swear at that other party, I raised my hand and said, I send you universal love and the and always changed, patience, you know, empathy, healing. And I started it with like emergency vehicles, like, you know, safety or whatever, or, you know, healing for whatever. And then I just started to do it people that pissed me off. And then I realized that it's not really that energy I'm not sending so much to them, but to me, because I was feeling all this agitation. And every once in a while, I still find myself doing that, but as soon as I realize that I'm like, at you, I'm like, oh, get that hand up and send some positive energy out there, because that's all I can do. And that's how I weaned myself off of it.
Thanks, Jennifer.
I'm Mark, and I'm actually going to agree with you because I lived in Chicago. Aaron and I lived in Chicago for about 7 years, and I'm sorry, but if you don't drive offensively, you die, okay? And same way, I was in Atlanta for years, that I had to work down there every now and then, and it was the same way. If you didn't drive offensively, if you didn't go out there and try to beat everybody, you were dead. So that's the way I drive. right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one other point that Ben mentioned that I didn't include in here is being boxed in. For me, it's not following somebody so much as it is sight. I want to see what's coming. I want to be at the front of the line so I know what's coming. If you're right behind a big truck or something, you don't know. You can't see. You can't see the light. You can't see the other traffic. And for me, I feel okay about me driving that way. I'm not sure about everybody else, but, and I know Lorna doesn't like it that much either, but yeah. We're still together after 47 years, so something.
Lorna has something to say. Go ahead and unmute, Lorna. Lorna has something to say.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. First of all, I am going to compliment Steve because he is much, much better than he was when we were younger. So I've managed to get past a lot of the original. No, I just wanted to comment on something that Jennifer brought up that just brought a good feeling to me. The story of the two wolves. I had kind of forgotten about that. But that my sister who passed away 3 weeks ago today, that was her favorite story, I think, of all time. She loved that story. She told it to people all the time, and she even had this beautiful something that she bought. I can't even remember where she was, but she was out of town. But it was two wolves together, and you could. Yeah, it's just really pretty, but it brought back lots of memories of her to hear about that again, and it is a beautiful story. So I just wanted to mention that, and thanks, Steve, for being better. You are better. That's better.
You're welcome.
God.
My mom forced me to go get it. And then I immediately moved to Louisville. So I basically learned to drive in Louisville, and I lived there for like 3 years. It's not to the point where if you don't drive aggressively, you'll die, but it's definitely up there. You're not getting anywhere in town unless you're with traffic. Because I got hit so many times in Louisville just because I was doing the right thing. I was driving the way that you should. But actually, one of the reasons that I wanted to move home was because of how aggressively everyone drives there. Everyone was just so angry all the time. Like, even when they weren't on the road, like, it reflected in their lives, like, when they were just going about their day. Like, they got mad on their way to work, so they were angry all day at work. And it was a very draining kind of environment to be in. So that was one of the things I wanted to move home because everyone was angry all the time. And when I got home, my driving still reflected what I had learned there. And Oakland City is a very, very small town with lots of elderly and handicapped people. So they like to go exactly the speed limit. If not less, which was very frustrating coming from a town where you have to drive 15 over the speed limit minimum. But one of the things that helped me was actually, I learned it in one of my psychology classes, was a lot of anger that we have is due to us blaming the other person that like made us mad, when in reality we should probably be thinking about like what made them mad, because there are lots of things in our lives that like someone did something and that made us angry, and so that reflected in a different action. And so like things like someone driving slow, you could, instead of assuming like they're just really slow or stupid or don't know how to drive, the thought should be, well, maybe something's wrong with their car. Like maybe their transmission's out or they can't like do something for whatever reason. So that's something that's really helped me is not like blaming the person and assuming that they have something else going on.
Thanks.
Kendall, what you said made me think of something I read. I'm usually a pretty placid driver. I don't get really upset, although I have been known to yell at drivers occasionally. But something to think about if you're in a situation and you pull behind somebody who's too slow or whatever, it's your, I don't want to say fault, but it was your decision to go there. It's not their fault you're behind them or that you're there. I mean, you left the house 10 seconds later than you would have. That's put you there. So it's just a situation. It's not really anybody's fault. So I try to think about that I chose to be here at this particular moment, and they can't do anything about why I'm here. So I don't know if that helps, but thought I'd mention it.
Thanks, Barb. Anybody else? Well, that was fun. So, thanks everybody for coming. I'll turn it back over to Tom. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve, and thank all of you. We always, or at least for me anyway, always learn and am inspired by the collective wisdom of the congregation. Our closing hymn is number 1053 in the Teal hymnal. So, 1053. What did I say? Well, I could have. I could have read it wrong as well. I'm speaking of imperfection. I'm the poster boy for imperfection. So unless I'm incorrect, it's hymn number 1053 in the Teal hymnal, How Could Anyone? So stand if you're willing and able.
All right, I'm just going to add one more thing, sorry. In China, there's 3 rules you have to remember when it comes to... I never see police cars pull anybody over for a traffic violation. Never seen it in China. I only see them show up after an accident. So the rule is, number 1, the biggest vehicle has the right of way. Number 2, the lines on the road are optional. And 3, don't hit anybody and don't get hit. So talk about driving defensively or offensively. It was kind of crazy. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, 1053. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. Let's sing it one more time. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
If you'd remain standing, please, and repeat the words in the bulletin as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment.
these we carry in our hearts until we are together again. You have closing words?
Oh, no.
Oh, well, I do.
I knew there was something.
Later that same day, in another part of town, These are words of Carl Jung. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. At all counts, it forms an unconscious snag, thwarting our most well-meant intentions. Go in peace, and may your living bless the world.
Yeah, went okay. That's the thing. People always have something to say about something.
This was like confessions.